For generations, native languages were pushed aside in American schools. But history has a strange way of turning what was once rejected into something unforgettable. When World War II arrived, one of those languages, Navajo, became one of the most important secret weapons the United States military ever used. This is the story of the Navajo Code Talkers, a story of courage, loyalty, sacrifice, and one of the most unbreakable codes in military history. By 1942, the United States was fighting a brutal war across the Pacific. The Japanese military was skilled at intercepting American communications. Messages about troop movements, battle plans, ship positions, and artillery targets could be caught in the air. And if the enemy understood them fast enough, Marines could die before they even knew they had been exposed. The U.S. military needed a code that was fast, a code that was secret, a code that could survive the chaos of battle. Then a civil engineer named Philip Johnston came to the Marine Corps with an idea. Johnston had grown up near the Navajo people as the son of a missionary. He knew something most military officers did not know. Navajo was incredibly complex. It was difficult for outsiders to learn, almost unknown outside the Navajo people, and at that time, very few non-Navajo speakers could understand it. To the enemy, it would sound like nothing they had ever heard before. But Johnston's idea was even stronger than that. This would not just be Navajo, it would be Navajo turned into a second code. To prove it, Johnston arranged a demonstration for Marine officers. They gave him sample military messages. Navajo speakers translated them, sent them across the line, and another Navajo speaker translated them back into English. The officers saw it immediately. This was not just a language. This was a battlefield weapon. In 1942, the Marines recruited the first 29 Navajo men. 29 men to build a code from nothing. They had to create military words that did not exist in their language. A tank became a turtle. A dive bomber became a chicken hawk. A submarine became an ironfish. A battleship became a whale. Fighter planes became hummingbirds. And they created an alphabet system too, using Navajo words to represent English letters. So even if someone somehow understood Navajo, they still would not automatically understand the code. The language hid the message. The code hid it again. And the most dangerous part? They memorized everything. No code books, nothing written down, no paper for the enemy to capture. The entire code lived inside their heads. By the end of World War II, more than 400 Navajo men had served as code talkers. And the Japanese never broke the code, not once. They intercepted the transmissions. They studied them. They sent their best cryptographers against them. But they could not understand them. To the enemy, the messages sounded like gibberish. But to the Marines, those voices were saving lives. And here is what made these men more than just voices on a radio. They were not sitting safely behind desks. They were landing on beaches under fire. They were carrying heavy radios through jungle heat. They were crouching in foxholes while bullets hit the ground around them. They were sending coordinates while shells exploded nearby. They were speaking calmly while men were dying only feet away. And the speed they gave the Marines was revolutionary. A message that could take a machine 30 minutes to encode and decode could be sent and understood by a Navajo code talker in about 20 seconds. 20 seconds instead of 30 minutes. In battle, that is not just faster, that is survival. That is artillery arriving before Marines are overrun. That is reinforcements going to the right place. That is a unit avoiding an ambush. That is lives saved because the message arrived in time. At Iwo Jima in 1945, 6 Navajo code talkers sent more than 800 messages in the first 2 days alone. Not one mistake. Major Howard Connor of the 5th Marine Division later said the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima without the Navajos. But carrying a secret that powerful came with danger. Commanders feared what might happen if a code talker was captured. The worry was that the enemy might torture him and force him to reveal the code. Some accounts say Marines were assigned to guard code talkers closely and protect them at all costs. The men carrying America's most valuable code were treated as if the entire operation might depend on them. And in many ways it did. Many of these code talkers were young. Some were teenagers. Many came from communities that had faced hardship, discrimination, and pressure to give up parts of their culture. And yet, when the country called, they volunteered. They fought with courage. They served with loyalty. They used the language of their people to protect Marines across the Pacific. That is what makes their story so powerful. They did not only help America win battles, they proved that something once overlooked could become one of the nation's greatest strengths. When the war ended, they came home, and they said nothing. The program remained classified until 1968. For more than 20 years after the war, many Navajo Code Talkers could not tell their wives what they had done. They could not tell their children. They could not tell their communities. Some families only learned the truth years later. Imagine carrying one of the greatest military secrets of World War II inside your memory, and still having to live like nobody knew. Chester Nez, one of the original 29, later spoke about being told not to talk about it at all. Not to his wife, not to his children, not to anyone. Other veterans later described the emotional weight of war, the silence after combat, and the healing ceremonies that helped them carry what they had seen. Because these men were heroes, but they were also human. They had heard the screams. They had watched friends die. They had sent messages that helped win battles, knowing those battles would cost lives. And then they came home and stayed quiet. When the story finally became public, the recognition was powerful. In 2001, the surviving original Navajo Code Talkers stood in the Capitol Rotunda and received the Congressional Gold Medal. Aging men who had carried a secret for almost 60 years. Families who finally learned the full weight of what their fathers and grandfathers had done. A nation finally saying thank you. On the medal was a message that said everything. With the Navajo language, they defeated the enemy. A language once discouraged in classrooms was now honored in the heart of the United States Capitol. August 14th is now recognized as National Navajo Code Talkers Day. But here's the part that should stay with you. The Navajo language survived. And in the darkest days of World War II, that language became stronger than machines, faster than code books, and impossible for the enemy to break.